Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farms. It's been really cold outside. It's like a winter wonderland, like probably 3 degrees, and it's getting well below zero at night. So that's why we're doing a lot more cooking. We're staying indoors, we're making comfort food, and we're staying warm. So I thought it'd be a good time to catch up on some cooking videos, and that way we're not doing all tractor stuff too. So today we're going to switch it up a little bit. I didn't realize when I did the biscuits and gravy video the other day, we didn't do any biscuits. So we're going to do some of those today, and I'm going to show you another way to use those biscuits. So you'll probably guess once I tell you what we're doing, we're going to do chicken and dumplings today. And there's several options for your chicken. You can cook one, brown one up and cook it in the pot for 2-3 hours and peel all the skin off the bone and throw all the bones out. Or you can do rotisserie chicken from the stores just fine, but what I recommend if you do that, peel all the cooked chicken off of that and then take your bones and cut them up, put them in a little water in the pan and make a stock out of those bones, and then strain your stock out and use that liquid because that would be really good. You can use leftover barbecue chicken, do the same thing with the bones if you can. But what we're doing is we got some frozen chicken, individually frozen chicken that we had in the freezer. So we're going to use that today. So I seasoned that up a little bit. We're going to brown it in the pan real good. And we'll show you what we're going to do after that. Okay, we got our chicken browning pretty good. The frozen chicken, you'll find the individually frozen stuff, and sometimes even the stuff you just buy in a regular package at the store, they inject a lot of water in it so they can charge you more for the weight. So it takes a while to cook the water out, but once the water is cooked out, it'll start browning a little bit. And we already have our vegetables chopped. Carrots, celery, and onion is your standard trinity of vegetables you're going to use in any soup or stew. Makes it really good. I also forgot to mention, you can even use canned chicken for this. But what I would do different, and probably with any other pre-cooked, fully cooked chicken, cube it up, but don't put it in the pan until you're almost ready to serve. And put it in there just long enough to heat the chicken up. Because if you don't, that chicken is just going to start falling apart and be all stringy in your pot. But since this was cooked from raw, we're going to be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and dump these veggies in there. We can get those to start sweating. And they'll brown a little bit too with the chicken. And then we're going to dump some chicken stock in. We'll be right back. If you're one of those people that absolutely have to have measurements when you're cooking, we started out with probably about 2.5 to 3 pounds of chicken. And then the vegetables we put in, there was probably a half a cup of each. You can go a little more if you'd like. Doesn't hurt a bit. If you like vegetables, you can go more chicken, go more vegetables, or whatever. Here in a second, we're going to add probably about 4 cloves worth of garlic. I use this brand in the jar. I really love it. And it may not be available in your area, but it's so sweet because it's been canned. So it kind of cooks the garlic and gets that really crazy, bitter green flavor out of it. You can almost spread that on toast and make garlic bread. It's so good. We use quite a bit of it. If you're using like canned chicken and you don't have the opportunity to brown your chicken up, this is a little secret here. You can add a little bit of this. I think it says on the back how much to add for what you're doing. So it says about 3 tablespoons into the pan, and then that's good for about 2 cups of hot water. But if we're putting 4 to 6 cups of liquid in here, you may want to add just a little bit more. But do it by taste. You can always add more later, but you can't take any out. But that's a secret. If you got that, it gives you that brown flavor if for some reason you don't have the opportunity to brown the meat. Alright, we've got a good sweat on those vegetables, so we're going to go ahead and add our chicken stock in there. Watch out for steam when you're doing that. Don't put your hand over the pan. We got all those little brown bits on the bottom of the pan. anytime you add cold liquid to a hot pot, anything that is stuck to the bottom of that pot will come right off. It's called deglazing. So you see we just covered the contents of that pot, and that's going to be good for now, but some of that liquid is going to boil off in the process, and we're going to simmer for a little bit. It's going to tenderize those vegetables, and it's also going to tenderize that chicken, because remember, we started from raw, so it's not fully tenderized like it would be if it was fully cooked like canned chicken or something like that. So we're going to let that simmer for a while. We've got the garlic in there that we told you about. I'm going to start throwing some herbs in here in a second, and when we do that, I will let you know what we're doing. Okay, we haven't quite reached a simmer yet, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and throw our herbs in. What we got here is about 1.5 teaspoons of thyme and about 1 teaspoon of sage. And I just rub that between my fingers to break it up a little bit more. Just throw that right in the pot. That's going to add a really, really good earthy flavor. And it's also going to make it a little more visually appealing too. You'll see the little green bits in there. We're going to put in a little bit of pepper. Probably a couple pinches of pepper. I would put a little crushed red pepper in that, but Kelly doesn't like anything much hotter than ketchup, so we're just going to put a good flavor profile in there and leave it at that. There's yesterday's cobbler, well on its way to being gone. So yummy. So we'll stir this in and we'll get this simmering. Little side note, that chicken that we put in there would probably be equal to about a whole rotisserie chicken. So if you want to make the comparison, if you want to buy just about a whole rotisserie chicken, you're going to be right around the same amount of chicken. So just remember though, that stuff's fully cooked. So just chop it up and throw it in right at the end before you serve. Or right before you throw the dumplings in is what we're going to do. But this doesn't have to be chicken and dumplings. This could be chicken soup. All you would do was throw some egg noodles in there instead of the dumplings. The dumplings are going to thicken that the juice in that broth as it cooks. So it'll make it a little bit thicker. I'd put like a whole bag of egg noodles in there. And as they cook right in that liquid, they'll thicken up quite a bit. And then when it sits overnight, you'll see that those noodles are going to soak up pretty much all the juice. So you might have to put a little more chicken stock in it the next day when you serve it. But we'll come back right before we throw the dumplings in. Remember, if you're using fresh herbs, you would increase that amount by 2/3. Anytime you're using dry herbs, it's always 1/3 of what you would be using if you used fresh. So if you've got fresh, by all means use it. Just increase it, the amount by 2/3. So we used, say, 1 teaspoon of sage. You'd end up being 3 teaspoons or a tablespoon of sage if it was fresh. Same thing with the other. Okay, we've simmered for about 1.5 hours, maybe almost 2 hours. And this is what it's looking like. Still got a good amount of liquid in there. I don't think we're going to have to add anything. So next up, we're going to make the dumplings. So get you a mixing bowl. And basically dumplings are just biscuits really. So if you had canned biscuits, you could do the same thing. But we're going to make the dumplings, aka biscuits. So we're going to start with 2 cups of flour. To that, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder. 1 tablespoon of sugar. 1 teaspoon of salt. This is still my tablespoon. I'm not going to dirty up a teaspoon. A teaspoon is 1/3 of a tablespoon. So about right there. Okay, that's all your dry ingredients. So I just get my pastry blender and I stir that together real good. When you get a pastry blender, get one that's got a little beef to it. This one's very nice, very heavy duty. The wire ones, they are junk. Throw them away. Because the secret to making biscuits and even pie dough or pie crust having your fat very, very cold, which means it's very, very hard. You hit that with one of those stupid wire pastry blenders, it's just going to bend. But we got 6 tablespoons of butter. It says to use unsalted butter, but I've never really had a problem using either one. So we're going to dump that in. Okay, we got our butter in. I cut it into smaller cubes. It gives you kind of a head start. And then take your pastry blender and you're going to cut that butter into the flour. Mix it up, keep cutting, mix it up, keep cutting. Those little tiny pieces of butter is what makes your biscuits really flaky. So you don't want to work that butter in. You want little tiny pieces of butter in that. And same thing with your pie crust. That's what makes your flaky crust. So make sure you got little bits of butter in there. If your butter is soft, you won't be able to do it. I'm going to cut this in. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, we've got our butter cut in. You can see the little pieces of butter in here. They're not worked into the dough. There's still little pieces of butter in there. So once we get the mixture to this point, 3/4 cup of sweet milk, buttermilk, whatever you want. And then another key ingredient, make sure the milk, or key tip, make sure that milk is cold. And then you're going to bring this together. And when I say bring together, I mean just bring together. Just so all the particles are moistened. And that's about as far as you want to go. This is not bread. You don't want to knead it. Let me finish mixing this up and we'll show you what's up after this. Okay, this is just till the liquid is incorporated. We haven't worked it. We haven't kneaded it. We haven't done anything. Now, if we were just doing dumplings, we could go from this stage right here and I would get like a disher, like a little tiny ice cream scoop. I call them dishers because I have different sizes of them. And you could take scoops of this and put it right in on top of your liquid in your pot. But for the sake of showing you how to make biscuits and a real easy tip, I'm going to put these out on a piece of parchment. I'm going to show you what I do. Okay, grab your dough up in a ball, put it out in the middle of the piece of parchment paper. If there's some stuff that's not quite incorporated, don't feel bad. Just kind of mash it down a little bit, pour that stuff on top, and it will incorporate in as you're flattening this out into about 1/2 to a 3/4 inch thick square. Try to keep both sides kind of equal. And then we're going to cut this into like square biscuits. If you've ever seen people cutting biscuits with a round biscuit cutter, you got all those little pieces that don't really come together good again, and you're going to overwork your butter, and they're really not going to be very good biscuits, and you're wasting a lot of dough. So we're going to cut this 2 cuts one way, 2 cuts the other way. All right, there we go. Do you care if your biscuits are square? I don't, and I got no wasted dough. Now, if you just gotta have round biscuits, as you pick these up, just round them out as you pick them up. Push those corners in and make them kind of round. You could even tuck the corners under a little bit if you wanted to. But you really don't need to. You would bake these in a 425-degree oven for about 12 minutes until they're a nice color that you like. When you pull them out of the oven, brush them with butter on top, and you got you some fantastic biscuits, and very easy to make. So we're going to drop these, however, instead of baking them, we're going to put them in our mixture here and make dumplings with them. And if you really wanted, I got some canned biscuits in here. If you didn't want to go to the trouble, take your canned biscuits out, float them in right on top of there, do the same thing. It'll work just fine. But we're going to use our nice homemade biscuits. Now, this pot is on low, but it's got a pretty good boil going, and that's what you want. So we're going to lay these biscuits in right in on top. There's one. There's two. And so on and so on. That one kind of broke in half, but that's fine. All dumplings are biscuits cooked in liquid instead of dry on a pan. And I'm going to try to bump these around a little bit so I can get my last one in there. I'll just kind of stuff it in there like that, and that'll be fine. Okay, we're going to let this boil for 10 minutes uncovered. And then after 10 minutes, we're going to put the lid on. That'll cook the tops of them, and you're going to do that for another 10 minutes. And then you are ready to eat. All that nice little flour in there is going to help thicken up your stock in there. It's going to come out really nice. We'll show you what it looks like when we're ready to eat. Okay, 10 minutes. Put the lid on. And another 10 minutes. All right, we have 10 minutes. Let's see what we got. Look at how fluffy those things got, all puffed up. Beautiful. You probably noticed I didn't put any salt in the recipe. We're going to turn the fire off on these. That's because the seasoning I used for the chicken got salt in it. The stock has salt in it. And I use salted butter because I don't buy unsalted butter. So I didn't add any salt. But if you taste it when you put it in your little bowl and you think it needs more salt, put a pinch on it. But we're going to let this cool down and we will see you at dinner time. Okay, Kelly's home, so we're going to eat. Get her, Brandy. All right, it's dinner time and look at that. Fantastic. Cannot wait to dig into that. Another variation with that, different dumplings. My mom's aunt, she used to take flour tortillas and she'd cut them into like 1 inch by 3 inch strips, and she would dump those in there and cook them for a little bit. Come out kind of like pasta rags if you've ever had those in soup. But they swell up a little bit, and then different kind of dumplings. She called them slips, I think. But they were really good. So hope you try this recipe. You're really going to like it. It's good stick to your ribs stuff on a cold winter day. And by Joe, that's what we got going on here. Cold. All right, as usual, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next time.